Recently, the Congolese government has introduced a law establishing the 6th April of each year as a holiday dedicated to the fight of Simon Kimbangu and the African consciousness.
Hello and welcome to Obehi Podcast. I'm your host, Obehi A14, and I strongly believe that everyone has a story to share. Now let's get started into this episode.
Now, 6th April is the date that marked the beginning of the healing and prophetic activities of Simon Kimbangu. Thus, it is in memory of that historical day that we are doing this show. Kimbangu was born in 1887 in the village called Nkamba in what is now the administrative territory of Bansangungu in Democratic Republic of Congo. His father is Kuyela and his mother Rezi. These later died while Kimbangu was still crawling. Thus the boy was raised by his aunt, Kinzembo, a herbalist. Kimbangu became a member of a Protestant church in 1915 and belonged to the Baptist Mission Society through its nearby station of Gombe Lutete. He married Mwilu, the widow of his late uncle. With Mwilu, he had 3 sons and a girl who died shortly after her birth. But Mwilu had a daughter from her previous marriage. In 1920, Simon Kimbangu headed to Kinshasa, the capital city of Congo, where he was hired in HCB, a palm oil factory. He was hired as checker. However, at moments of pay, it always appeared that his wage was always taken by an unknown person, while the signature proved to be that of himself. Due to this problem, he decided to change the job and switch into small businesses. But this was to no avail. To his dismay, the clients always returned the cassava bread he was selling, claiming that they were corrupted. This failure caused him to go back to his abiding village, Nkamba. As I said above, his healing work started out on 6 April 1921. On that memorable day, on his way to the market, Kimbangu healed Kiantondo, who had a severe disease that made her kins fear for her life. The healing was deemed miraculous. Thus started the healing and prophetic career of the prophet Simon Kimbangu. And this healing career will witness the documented resuscitation of 5 persons and many miraculous healings. The spiritual career of Simon Kimbangu will be characterized by 3 elements. First, the healing work that will lead many people to move to Nkamba, thus disrupting the economic life of the territory. Second, the theological nature of his teachings, which were marked by the recourse to both Protestantism and African traditional religion. And third, his prediction, his predictions of the future independence of the Belgium Congo and the liberation of the Black people of Africa from the yoke of the West. It is mostly the theological nature of the teaching of Kimbangu and his prediction in favor of the freedom of the Black people that is of the great importance for us in this show. Though Kimbangu was a Protestant, it will be a mistake to circumscribe his teaching and healing practice into the limits of Christianism. In fact, he exhibited a double standard whereby he was publicly speaking and healing in the name of Jesus Christ, while within the circle of his closest followers, his stance was one of an initiate of African traditional religion. This connection of the Congo prophets with African traditional religion is clearly seen in his prayer pronounced in the forest of Mbanzonsanda during the underground phase of his healing work. Contrary to the devotional practice of Christians, this prayer was addressed neither to the Most High God, nor to Jesus, nor to the Holy Ghost. This famous prayer is really a master document of the theology of Congo, the Congo religion, and even of African traditional religion. It reveals the Congo initiates way of praying and the hierarchical theism or the hierarchical monotheism of their religion, which includes first, a transcendent Most High God named Zambi Ampungu Tulendo, a creator of this temporal universe called Bumba Loa, the solar creator. And third, Pinanda, the God governor of all in heaven and in the temporal realm. Then comes Congo, the eponymous highest divinized ancestor of the Congo people. Thanks to this revelation of the Congo hierarchy of divinities, a congruence can be established between the Congo, the religions of ancient Egypt and Sumer, as well as with early Christianity. Thus, Kimbangu gives us the theological proof of the link existing between ancient Egypt and the Bantu people, especially the Congo people. This spiritual link between Congo people and ancient Egyptians was depicted by Bastian, quoted by Gerald Massey in his Book of Beginnings. He writes, when the Bakongo spoke to a superior, they might have sat as models of the Egyptian priests when making the representation of the temple walls. So striking is the likeness between what is there depicted and what actually takes place here in the Kingdom of Congo. Theirs were the primitive sketches. The Egyptians finished the picture. It is also worthy to know that where Sheikh Antajab, the Senegalese scientist, the great scientist, demonstrated through his proof of melanin rate the unity of Sub-Saharan Africa with ancient Egypt, and Theophile Obenga stressed the same unity thanks to linguistics. Simon Kimbangu allows us to establish this unity thanks to theological congruence. Moreover, the importance of the hierarchy of the divinities furnished by Kimbangu is seen also in the fact that it enables other Africans to seek and discover this hierarchy in their traditional spiritual cultures. At last, let's mention that these master documents of African traditional religion enables us to interpret correctly the four elements, that is, fire, earth, water, and air, that were seen by Aristotle as being components of the universe. Kimbangu's use of these elements in his prayer rather shows that they are the four states of the elevation of consciousness. Starting from the earth, those who do not accept spiritual truth find themselves in a state of suffering symbolized by fire, here or in the beyond. As for those who accept spiritual truth here and live its light, they are in water, that is, in a state of purification symbolized by water. And they work to reach the state of consciousness characterized symbolized by the air, where they will be pure spirits. Now, on the political level, the purpose of the Congo prophets was to prepare the Congolese, even the Black people, for the independence that was to be expected. These prophecies are mind-blowing when one considers that in the Belgian Congo of that time, the Black people had then neither higher education nor access to a formation, a training to equip them to be able to run a modern country. As for the sign of the imminent accomplishment of the independence, the prophet said, when you will see a skyscraper being built in Kinshasa, then the moment is near. This first skyscraper of Sub-Saharan Africa was built in 1945, a mere 10 stories building called Florescom, which was the tallest before the Cocoa building of Nigeria. However, the prophet Kimbangu did not only prophesy the independence of the Belgian Congo, he also spoke of the nature and performances of the first presidents of the independent Congo. Second, the fact that the country will witness the infiltration of foreigners even at the top level of its administration. Third, he thus prophesied the second independence of the Congo, which will be the separation of the Congolese from the foreign infiltrates. For, for Kimbangu, the second independence of the Congo will lead to the rise of African black nations. Five, the African young people will then have the intelligence to invent technologies that will surpass the Western achievements. Summarizing his thoughts, the Congo prophet said that the black people will become white and the white people black. In this, he didn't think of a racial mutation of the people. His concern was the epistemological shift that will lead to the African religious, scientific, and technological paradigm becoming the leading standard in the world. The healing work of the prophet Simon Kimbangu was such a huge success that tens of thousands of pilgrims from the Belgium Congo, the French Congo, and the Portuguese Congo or Angola flocked to the village of Nkamba where he was operating. This naturally led to the disturbance of the economic activities around. Workers deserted factories. The nearby hospital of Gombelutete was abandoned not only by the patients, but even by the medical teams, etc. To the colonial authorities, the liberation theology of Kimbangu and his success had to be stopped. The prophet became a target of the police, as it wasn't time for him to be arrested or to cease his activity. He turned into underground activities, hidden to the colonists but accessible to the black in the forests of the surrounding villages for 3 months. At the end of this period of hiding, he surrendered to the colonial authority who arrested him. He was brought to court and sentenced to death. Half the sentence was commuted by the then King of Belgium to life imprisonment. Kimbangu was incarcerated at Elizabethville, now called Lubumbashi. While in prison, he was being seen in various places free and teaching and even healing. Simon Kimbangu died in 1951, and after having shared words of wisdom with his prison mates and predicting the time of his death, 3 o'clock p.m. The great Congo prophet has corporeally died, but has a spirit. He is always alive as a mighty holy ancestor. Moreover, his prophecies are still alive. Today, African black people, the black will become white. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate the time to lay out the argument there. Okay, this particular series that we are working on now is called Life and Legacy. The first thing I would like to ask you there, because of course, all what you have said, I've noted down some things I'm going to ask you to clarify in the course of the conversation, and we are going to look more into his life. The reason for this episode, the reason for this series of episodes on life and legacy is so that we can learn from those who have been here before us who have shaped our common identity, our history, from those in Africa to those in the African diaspora. It is important for us as African children of today to learn from those who have been here before us so that we can also pass on the story to those who will be here after we have gone. So it's actually we played part in a long journey. All right. Now, why do you think it is important to single out Prophet Simon? Do you think people should learn about him? That is the first question I want to ask you.
It is very important to learn about him because here was someone who was a great prophet. We worship great prophets like Muhammad, like Jesus, like Buddha, and we take them as examples. But we don't have to forget that we had also great prophets in the continents. And for the Congo people, the greatest of them is Simon Kimbangu. In 3 years, Jesus raised 3 people. In 2 months, Simon Kimbangu raised 5 people. We were in 1921. Nobody even was thinking about the independence. That man was already using the theology of liberation from that time. He was telling black people that the white people will go a day, you will be free. It was unbelievable. Now, all that man has said has been accomplished. As I told you, there were at that moment no sign of independence, but he told the people, you see the trains that have been built now. You will see also aerial trains. He means airplanes. You will see airplanes, and you will see very good roads being built. And when you will see a skyscraper being built in Kinshasa, then the time is ready. So all those prophecy turns out to be realities. And now remain one of them, the second independence of the Congo and the progress of the black people. In the political scene now, people are speaking about the change that will bring a new order. But Simon Kimbangu was already speaking about this new order in 1921. The new order is being spoken as the cessation of the domination of the Western, the NATO, and United States. But Simon Kimbangu went higher. He saw the new order as the liberation of the black people from the yoke of the West. So it is important for us not only to understand the gist of his teaching, but to learn about his person.
The last part is absolutely very important. Not that the other are not important, but I wanted to spend some time there. His person. Now, I want you to spend some time helping us to understand what do we have to learn about his early childhood, growing up in Congo. What do we need to learn about it?
He was an ordinary child. There were nothing really specific to be mentioned in his life. He was an ordinary child. He became a Christian early in 1950. And then he married. So There was not a specific sign, but I will say this. In Africa, we know that we don't come from nowhere. We always comes from somewhere to be born here. So it is my conviction that some people comes here after having been in touch with great initiates, after having got a spiritual luggage, and they born here with that luggage, and at least a spark of spirituality enables them to find themselves back in that setting. I believe that Simon Kimbangu was that kind of person.
Um, Now, do you want to tell us a bit about uh, the Congo he was born into? How was Congo of his early childhood? What can we learn of the circumstances of the territory, the Congolese people? Because, of course, you did make mention of the Belgians a number of times in your presentation. To help us understand what is the situation of the Congolese people when Simon was born.
The Congo was first the personal property of the King Leopold II. It was his personal possession. And at that time, rubber has been discovered. Or let's say, car has been made. And those cars needed tires. And tires are made of rubber. And rubber was found in Congo. There is a tree in Congo that produced rubber. And the people of the Congo became slaves in their own country, forced to produce rubber. If you don't produce now enough rubber, they will cut your hand or cut your leg, so on, so that half of the population of the Congo Free State, as it was called then, were killed. And due to this, when it was revealed, the king was so ashamed that his personal possession, which is the Congo, was taken to him and given to the belt of Congo. But it is, as they used to say, to take off the cloth from St. Peter and to put them to St. Paul. It is the same. So the chiefs changed, but the hardship was still there. So when Simon Kimbangu was born, whipping was still used in order to punish people. Education was, the people were in education, people were just going through the three first forms of primary education. And they were from just in order to be auxiliaries of the white people. There were disease, and one of the diseases that was scary and killing people was a sleeping disease that was killing many people. So that was the political setting. The country was ruled by Belgium, but it was mainly ruled as a depository of raw material to be used and export to be sent to Europe for the benefit of the white people.
Now, we can understand why the message of Simon will be important now, because the people are in bondage, they need a salvation. In fact, I
Yeah.
think that is where most of the prophet that we read about in many other places, whether you are looking at Buddha, looking at Jesus, looking at Muhammad, looking at Gandhi, that is where they came, because there is usually a time in the history of a people that individuals are born and they come to fulfill certain mission. Yes, so it was such a time in Congo. Was there anything in a particular way specific that have happened to Simon that made him to change his mind, or to fine tune his direction where he wanted to go in terms of African spirituality?
I don't think that he changed his mind. I definitely don't think so. Let me give you an example from my own family. My mother was a deacon in the same Baptist church Brother Kimbangu was. As a deacon, one day I saw my mother in a conversation talking with a lady. That lady has a kid of him who was very sick. And he said to my mother, when the situation became worse, I called them. I knew he was speaking about the ancestors. And my mother didn't disagree with this. It astonished me. From that time, I understood that the Protestant people, the black people, were using double standards. They were Christians, but they still were hanging, or they still were clinging to African beliefs. That Simon Kimbangu, no, it was natural for the Congo people in African traditional religion. This schema is seen since the beginning of the introduction of Christianity in the 15th century. When the white people came with their religion, the black initiates looked at it and they came to the conclusion that there is a similarity. So that the leading initiate of that moment, who was Donna Beatrice, that we are in the 17th century, Donna Beatrice changed her name to become Kimpa Vita. Now, Kimpa means the thing, the business, the offer, and so on. And Vita means to precede. So she was telling the people, the black people, that we were the first in that game of the religion in which man has to become a child of God, in a manifest way, through the purification of thoughts. So you see, actually, the black people didn't reject their belief even when they became Christians. So that's what happens also with Simon Kimbangu.
That is very important now. In fact, it made me remember when I was still in Nigeria some years ago. I'm talking of over 20 years ago. Uh, I was going to the Catholic Church. I come from the south of Nigeria, specific Uromi, which is Esa in the south of the country. So there was a particular Reverend Father at the time who was in charge of St. Anthony at the Catholic parish in Uromi. Now, he will say to the Uromi people, I'm with Befia. I'm with Befia. So by I'm with Befia, he was telling the Uromi, the Esan people that, of course, in a sort of derogatory term, that is how he was using the term, no? By that, anyway, what it means is that you don't leave yourself open just like that, that you can't leave yourself unguided. By that, The Esan people or the Uromi people in this specific case, they go to the church, but they also go to see they also believe in their traditional things. Maybe they go to see the traditional doctor and the diviner and things like that. And of course, this notice came to him, and he was saying, "Ah, Uromi people, so you come to the church now, you worship today, then tomorrow you go you to do your traditional belief and all that. Why don't you just stay here and forget the rest, no?" Because of course, that is what the Catholic doctrine or the Christian doctrine actually preach, that you need to forsake every other thing and follow this, because this is the only way to know God. But I've reflected on that for a lot of time, no? In that somehow the African people or a lot of African people understand that their form of spirituality is not in the church, it's not in the mosque, but it's a way of life. Is that is your life really? So sometimes it is difficult to just forsake it, even though you are a Christian or you are a Muslim. You cannot forsake who you really are. Your spirituality is your way of life, and of course this is going to be very evident in many other senses now. We see a lot of people fighting in the military. Many of them are Christians and Muslim, but we still see them having some amulet around their neck, on their leg, on their hands. And now you sort of wonder, but why do you do this? Because that is what they believe really it is. It's just like, for example, when in the United States, the American soldiers are going to the war, you have the Reverend Father who is coming to pray for them. They use the cross to pray for them that God is going to defend you in what you have, in your mission, because you are fighting for God. Because the Europeans have been doing this for very many years. That it's enough to look at the crusade, for example, for over 200 years, people have been slaughtered in the name of God. Yeah, of course, God have always been used in this case. And of course, let's look at it from the point of view of spirituality. I'm just saying that the people know that it is rudimental in them. Now, another thing I also want to say about that before I move to the other question, I want to ask you, of course, ask your reflection on this too, is that J.K. Rowlings, the former military head of state of Ghana, did make a speech one time, and he was saying that the African people really do not care so much about that thing you call Christianity, in a sense that they will lie. If they commit a crime and you bring the Bible for them to swear, they will swear, because they don't really believe that Bible is going to do something against them. But if you take the same people to the shrine, to the traditional shrine in Ghana, they will not lie, because they know what will happen to them if they lie in front of the shrine. That also testifies that the African people have a fundamental understanding of what is meant by spirituality. It is not in the Bible, it is deeper than that. So I'll just give an example of Nigeria. I also make mention of what is happening in Ghana. I don't know if I'm just the only one that is just feeling it like this, or apart from the Congolese situation, which we already explained, we have also heard of other Africans who have this fundamental belief of their spirituality different from, even though they are still Christian or Muslims.
We don't only have that schema. That schema is everywhere. But what must be added here is that the Congolese people had their spiritual schools while the missionary were teaching. And when you read the first book wrote about the African initiatory school by black people, which is Fukiao, you will notice that one of the initiates told Fukiao that it is astonishing to see that most of the things that we are taught here are found in the church. People sometimes overlook this. I myself, as a theologian, came to discover the Kemetic cosmological argument which is the natural systematic theology of our religion. Now, when I make a comparative study of this natural theology with the true teaching of early Christianity, I see that there is a lot of convergence. So I say not only African people are convinced of their spirituality as being true and fundamental, but the Congo initiates were also convinced that what the white people brought them was only a, a, a limited and fake rendition of what they had.
I'm trying to see either the certain person that could have influenced him as he was growing up in Congo. Is there somebody who was influencing him to follow the trajectory that he actually followed that we can sort of lay hand on?
No, I don't think that there was a person who was encouraging him or setting an example for him in order to follow that spiritual trajectory. We know that his stepmother was an herbalist. So it means that there was a tradition of healing in his family. That is something known. There was a healing tradition. But as for the spiritual tradition, no. But it is known that for two times that stepmother show acts of courageous. There were a moment when people were chasing the missionary of the area in order to kill him. He was running and he went to hide himself in the house of the stepmother of Simon Kimbangu. And that was a marking story in his life that that missionary, which was Mr. Comber, he prayed for Simon for Mama Kinzembo and told her, "You are a herbalist, but this work will be done by your son." Now, I don't mean that only that prayer led Kimbangu to do what he has done. But remember, I told you that there are people who come here with a spiritual luggage. All they need is a sparkle. All they need is just a little incentive for the spiritual luggage, the spiritual luggage to be awakened. I think that is what happened to Kimbangu, and also he was a very a faithful person, and eventually all those spiritual inheritance he had in him became overwhelming and was urging him to be practiced. And that what led to his failure in Kinshasa, and he was obliged to go back to the village. And when he went back, his healing mission started.
All right. Now, he went back to the village. Do we know what, when he got back to the village, what he did there? Like he went to study, he went to meet people. What did he do there when he went back to the village? What can you share with us from that point?
When he went back to the village, he didn't have an idea of what will be the future. So he went back to the village to start his life as it were before, the life of the peasant. So on the day of the market, he was selling tobacco. So he took his tobaccos and his pipe, and he was going to the market. But when he arrived near the house of that lady Cantondo, he heard a voice in impulse urging him to go and pray for Cantondo. He, 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 he didn't mind to do such a thing when leaving his house. So he obeyed. That was not the first time that voice was urging him to accept that mission. In fact, he was hearing that voice telling him to work for God. And he was saying, no, I'm not a learned person. You have such and such who are learned person. They can do that. That voice was telling him that it is you who are chosen. And if he went to Kinshasa, he was kind of fleeing that voice, kind of trying to avoid that voice. And on that day of the market, he could not anymore resist, because when he tried to resist, his legs were blocked. He could not move forward, and he was obliged to go in the house and do something. So he went inside, he put his hand on Cantondo, who had a high fever, and Cantondo was instantaneously healed. From that time, he put away his pipe. He never used the tobacco again, never saw tobacco again, and began the healing mission.
Healing mission. So at this time, he was praying using the Bible, or praying as a Christian, or at this using African spirituality. Can you clarify that part?
There is a lot of noise on this point. Many people say, "Oh, he was a Christian." The others say, "Oh, no, he was not a Christian. He was." Based on my own experience and based on the experience of my family, was I tell you about my mother who was a deacon, and based on the document I read about Kimbangu, he was not intended to destroy the faith of the people, so that when he was publicly speaking, he was using a Christian stance. But when he was with his near followers in little circle, he will use the stance of African traditional religion. So as I said, there is a zone of convergence between both religions. If you stay on that zone, you can speak both spiritual languages without contradicting yourself. So Kimbangu wasn't confused. He knew that he was a Christian, but he knew also that the spiritual legacy of his ancestors was valid. So that when we analyze his prayer at Mbanza, we realize that it is not a Christian who was praying. He didn't address his prayer to the Most High God, as will do ignorantly a Protestant Christian, not knowing that God, the Most High, is transcendent. He knew about the transcendence of God, which is taught in African traditional religion. So that prayer was not directly addressed to the Most High God. He made a difference between the Most High God and the Creator, which is not the case in Western Christianity. They confuse the Most High as being at the same time the Creator. Simon Kimbangu didn't do that confusion in that prayer. He did speak about the Binanza as the governor. Now, let me tell you this. In the Sumerian religion, you have the same schema. You have the most high God called Anu or An. You have a creator called Ankai, and you have Enlil, who is the God governor. The very same schema. And we know that the religion of Sumer and the religion of ancient Egypt are the same. That third God, that third divinity is the Logos. He is called the governor. In Egypt, he is called the God of order. And elsewhere, among the Moshi of Congo Brazzaville, he is called the judge. Now we know that to judge, to govern, to set order is the same function within the setting of ancient civilization. So you see, that prayer was a prayer of a Congo initiate. It was not addressed to the Most High God. There is no mention of Jesus. There is no mention of the Christ. There is no mention of the Holy Ghost. So for me, we have in Kimbangu a Christian for the population, and we have an initiate of African traditional religion for those who have open eyes to see, to understand.
Thank you for that, sir. Thank you for that. That is important. In fact, it takes us back to what we were saying before, that now the Vatican would say, okay, all of us are the same, are all children of God. In fact, to many Europeans, that is even something that is difficult for them to accept, particularly for those who believe that they are superior, as if God, first of all, created you as a superior being, then he created also the inferior. If we were able to look at it like that, it means God is responsible for the confusion. Because how can you make some people inferior and make some other inferior? Of course, we know if you have a half brain that we are the one that actually created the confusion as human beings. But now you were saying that Simon, he was a Christian, but he was also praying according to the tenets of African spirituality, which
Yes.
again is a confirmation of what I was saying before, that the people of my town in Esan, they are Christians, but they also believe in the African traditional system. Of course,
Yeah.
sometimes because of the pressure, the peer pressure, the pressure from the people who do not know enough, people are not bold enough to say, yes, I still believe those things. So they hide in the secret to do the same thing that they have been doing before. But some of these things that they do are actually very natural for them because it has been their evolution, it has been their way of life. African spirituality, I repeat again, is not this Sunday to Sunday worship. It is a way of life. You just do it without even knowing it. I believe that is why for my father, it wasn't important for him to tell me, don't go. I will be fine. So go if you have to go. All right. So I was interviewing another person, a scholar here, is a writer coming from Benin Republic, who were working on a documentary about Pan-Africanism. Then I was
Yeah.
trying to juxtapose what we have today in Africa, which is actually a confusion where brother stabbing his own brother in the back, looking at Thomas Sankara, for example, or many other people in Africa who have not understood the concept of being one, being a people, and this beautiful idea of Pan-Africanism, Ubuntu. So I was saying, if we put this together, how does it square up? This idea and the reality that we have today in Africa. So I did a documentary in 2015. So I interviewed different people. Then in the documentary, I was making mention of the situation that was rampant in Nigeria, which was the Boko Haram situation, where a lot of people in northern Nigeria believe that because they are Muslim, they could slaughter their brothers who are equally Nigerians, because those people are infidel, as they say. And of course, the question of infidel is something that will come up again and again during the the Arab war for over 200 years of crusade. I am pure, you are not pure, so I can kill you. So we arm ourselves, to kill ourselves in the name of God. But we said the other day that God was supreme. We said the other day that God was a God of love. We said the other day that God created everything. But now we quickly forget that, and we take dagger, take knife, and start slaughtering people in the name of the same God. Something is wrong with us. So I was asking this man, how could we do this to ourselves? We are Africans. Apart from the fact that we are even Nigeria, both of us are Nigeria, we are yet killing ourselves in the name of something that we do not know. Why can't we just tolerate ourselves? So he was telling me that in African traditional system, like I was already saying before, it is not contradictory for you to be a Christian and also be a Muslim if you have to be. But now if we take that argument and expand on it, we can see where the conflict is coming from. The conflict is coming because Islam and Christianity are strictly tied to commerce, to business. It is not really about saving you. Except you are blind as an African, Islam did not bring salvation to Africa. And Christianity also did not bring salvation to Africa. They cannot logically bring salvation to you if they are the same people that are enslaving you. For over 700 years, the Arab have enslaved African people doing their so-called slave trade by Africa. In fact, we have very, very few Africans that survived this genocide for over 700 years, nearly 1,000 years. So how can you tell me that these people, they are bringing you salvation? It is not possible. They didn't have that in their mind yesterday. They don't have it in their mind today, and certainly not tomorrow. So, like he said, you can be Christian and also be a Muslim. What is wrong with it? So I can see Simon now, who is a Christian, praying according to the tenet of African spirituality of the Congolese people. As an African, it is not surprising for me. All right. Now, this is a question that... please say something.
Let me add this. In Africa, religion was a power that was advancing nations and uniting people. Thanks to comparative study by using the Kemetic cosmological argument, I showed that Sumer, which belonged culturally to Africa, Nubia, Egypt, had the same religion. They were just one religion in Africa. So there was not a need of proselytism in that Africa of yester time. We never heard about the Igbo people going to convert the Yoruba. We never hear about the Congo people going to convert the Luba people of Kasai. No, they knew that they were in the same religion. And the proof of this is that when a nation was conquered by the Egyptian or by the Babylonian, their gods were included in the pantheon because they knew it was the same religion. Now we have to understand this schema. You were speaking about Pan-Africanism. And for one, I'm convinced that the glue that banded Africa has a unity was spirituality, was religion. And why? Because that religion of ancient time was an exact science. That is what we are proving now. So it is important for us Black people to understand that scientific dimension, because that scientific dimension will bring back the unity, spiritual unity of Africa. And the spiritual unity of Africa will mean the Pan-Africanism unity that is sought since the time of Kwame Nkrumah and so on.
Um, how would you describe his whole philosophy as a person looking at African and African spirituality? If we say this was how he defined our spirituality, our way of life as a people, what is his whole description?
He didn't let us a description of our spirituality as such, but you say that spirituality is a way of life. So we have to see it in his life. In his life, what we see is that spirituality is a power, a healing power. And spirituality is a freeing power. Spirituality is not something that will be used in order for you to say, oh, they may make me suffer, but I know that that is nothing. I will go into heaven. No, he will teaching that spirituality will lead you free. He was teaching that by praying, you call your ancestor and it will lead to your freedom. So he was through his acts, he was showing us that spirituality is a power that can break the yoke of slavery, the yoke of domination of the white people, and so on.
That is something I'm trying to understand here. I think at
Yeah.
the point in your explanation, in the very first time that you were talking about Simon Kimbangu, you did mention that he prophesied that at a point the black people will be white and the white people will be black. I'm not sure
Mhm.
that I quite understand that. Please, can you explain it? What did he mean by that, or what do you say he mean by that?
You have to see to put yourself in the context in which he was speaking. The ruler was the white people. All the factories were owned by the white people. The governing body was composed of the white people who were to accept the orders. And Simon Kimbangu was saying that there will be a shift where the black people will become free. And then he added that the black country are rich country. The European country are poor country, poor countries. So that they will be coming here to work for us. Our religion, our science, our technology will be the higher standard model in the world. We know that this was the case in the time of ancient Egypt. Pythagoras, Plato, Aristotle, all those who are called great philosophers of antiquity used to come to Africa, to the black people, in order to have the higher knowledge, the science. And Simon Kimbangu was speaking about a return to that order of things, not a racial mutation, but an epistemological shift where Africa will have the highest religious, scientific, and technological standards to be followed by all the other peoples of the world.
All right. So no, I said thank you for that clarification. It is important because it is very easy for people to get it misunderstood. Particularly if you go in Christianity, of course, you know this very well. Sometimes when Africans pray, they pray songs like, "Oh God, make me whiter than snow," something like that. No, because they
Mhm, mhm.
believe the idea that have been sold to them that when you are white, you are pure, or when you are black, when you have the African pigmentation, you are coarse, you are evil. that is how it is interpreted to them. So we understand it now that they are praying, saying, "Oh God, make me whiter than snow," which literally will be translated to mean, "Oh God, when I am no longer a sinful person, when I'm no longer a bad person, I will be a white person," something like that. So that is why I just needed that clarification for somebody to understand that it might not necessarily mean the physical white or black, so that people don't get that confused. So thank you so much for that clarification, because it is very important. All right. So at what point in his life did he actually emerge as a leader? I'm talking of Simon Kimbangu. At what time in his life would you say he has become a leader in Congo in terms of spirituality, in terms of prophecy, and what he was doing in his lifetime?
First of all, he went to the Protestant school and he became a catechism, but he didn't learn enough in order to be a leading person in the church. The Protestant church. So what brought him to leadership is mainly his healing work that showed the power of God working in him, and also his courageous feats, not being afraid to oppose the white people, to tell the truth, and to say to the people that we are going to be free. I think what brought him to leadership, what brought him to prominence, is the healing work and the nature of his speech for the freedom of the black people.
His healing works. Now, I think you need to explain that part. What do you mean his healing work? Is it a form of magic, an ability that somebody can learn? Is it something that I want you to explain that part. I think we need some explanation. What kind of healing work are you referring to?
You have to know that within the setting of the Congo culture, we have two kinds of healing: the material healing, or I can say the human healing, and the divine healing. The divine healing was taught in the school of the Kimpasi, which was the school of the formation of the prophets. Healing was performed there as through the purification of thought by using water. By purifying a person through water, they will bring the healing into that person. On the other side, there was also a human healing which was practiced by herbalists, traditional therapists. They will use plants, minerals, etc. to heal. But when they were practicing this human healing, they will always pray by saying, "Buka mukati ya buka kumbazi," which literally means heal the inward person while trying to heal the outward person. Now, the inward person doesn't mean the inward organs. No, the inward person means the deeper person, which means the spiritual person, the spiritual, the true person. So the human healer knew that what he was doing cannot be effective if the spiritual component is not brought. In other words, the healing must be holistic. But what I'm bringing here is that you had two schemas of healing. the human and the divine. Both were present in the kingdom of Congo. And Simon Kimbangu, his stepmother was using the human healing, but himself was using the spiritual healing. By spiritual healing, I mean healing through the sacre of the spirits. Now, when I say spirits, a Christian will think about Holy Spirits, but an initiate like me or like Kibangu was will think about the ancestors. They are spirits called in Congo Bakisi. And moreover, you have to know also that I spoke about healing through the purification through water. And Simon Kimbangu was using also this schema. And even today, that water of that river of Kamba had a pool, which is a holy pool. And even today, people will go there to bath and be healed if you have faith.
Now, Simon Kimbangu become prominent because of his healing ability, or the way that he's able to make the connection and then get the individual who is sick to be healed. And this, you said, is according to the initiative school in Congo. It's not because of religious practices coming from the West or Christianity, that's it. Where
He didn't go to an initiate school. As I said, no, we have no proof of this. But I told you, in Africa, we don't come from nowhere. We come from a community which is in the beyond. And we are sometimes born here because we are sent to accomplish a mission. So it is my conviction that he had an initiation before being born here. And when someone is so equipped, he doesn't need a formal initiation here again. He just needs a sparkle in order for what he had to be awakened. And I believe that he was such a person. So we have no proof that he went to a initiatory school, but we see the lineage of the initiate being present in him. So the only conclusion can be that he came with it.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you for that. So, of course, your interpretation is that those healing, what I'm trying to understand there for asking for your clarification is that those healing, the practices or the approach that he took in healing people is not according to the doctrine of Christianity. It's according to the Congo religion, correct?
It is according to a spirituality which is a Congo spirituality, but which is not also antagonist to what was being taught in the church. But it was according to a spiritual legacy of his ancestor of Kimpasi.
Now, at the time Simon Kimbangu was born, up until his death, how was Christianity practiced in Congo? Was it according to how he was doing it, the healing, or were Christians' practices or healing different from the way that Simon Kimbangu was doing it? Can you help me understand that?
It was different from the way he was practicing it. Gilles Chaumet, who is one of the biographers of Simon Kimbangu, used to say that he had his own interpretation of the Bible. So he was interpreting, he was making the interpretation of the Bible according to the needs of the black people, to the urgent needs of the black people, not according to the white people. So it wasn't the same, because he wasn't taught the healing practice in the church, but he had the healing practice in his culture. He went to a training to become a catechist, but he didn't go as far as to become a real catechist. So that when he began, because one thing you have to understand, when he began his healing work, the Protestant church was supportive. They even sent him someone to act to help him as a catechist. So they were supportive at the first moment, just at the first moment. And then the pressure of the Catholic Church who was against him, and the pressure of the colonial authority make them turn back and change their mind. When you go at that mission of Gombelutete, where Simon Kimbangu was baptized, if they if you take their book of enrollment at aside the name of Simon Kimbangu, the white people has written a prophet.
What is that supposed to mean? Can you expatiate on that?
They were convinced by the work of Simon Kimbangu that he was a true prophet. So they wrote it down that this man was a prophet. They were convinced that he was a true prophet, but there was the pressure of the government, the pressure of the Catholic Church. So they had to change their mind in order to be in this camp, in the same side with the white people. And they said to him, they will arrest you. So to come back to the question, he had a training, but which was not sufficient for him to be a catechist.
Mhm. All right, I get that. So when there was this pressure coming from the church, the Vatican, or the colonizing power, the Belgium, or the King Leopoldo himself, what did the people do? I mean, the local people, what did they do in either to stand with him or against him? What did the local people do?
At first time, the authorities sent Mr. Snook, I think then his name was Snook, yes, Mr. Snook, with the police in order to see what was happening in Kamba. And when he came, he saw a lot of people. He understood that it was a serious matter. And he told Simon Kimbangu if he can replace the hair or someone who has a hair that was cut, and pray for that a new hair appear. And Simon Kimbangu told him that Jesus didn't put a new hair, he did put back just the hair that was cut. So the police the police came in order to check and see what was happening there. But that time, the population was always supportive of Kimbangu because he was healing people. They were supportive of him. And then when they came the second time to arrest him, he told the population not to retaliate and not to use power, just to pray. But as the police began to beat people, and the people began to retaliate by throwing stones, and then they fired, and one person died, a baby died. They put Kimbangu in his house, and they were sure that he was inside. And after the turmoil, they said to the police, "Come with him." And that police said, "Oh, he is already gone. He's not there." And from that time on, he went into the hiding. Now, the important thing about the hiding is that he was hidden for the white people, but the black people who were in need of him will go always and find him in the forest. My uncle, who was one of the biographers of Simon Kimbangu, used to say that they will be in the forest and they will be singing, and people, the black people, will hear that they are singing from such a place, so they can go. That the white people will hear them singing very far, and they couldn't go.
All right. Now, I have a curiosity. Simon Kimbangu, did he have the power to have been able to resist the people that were coming to arrest him? Okay, I'm asking this question not because I don't believe that uh, he could do miracle. Of course, according to the Bible, Jesus could do a lot of miracle, but when his time came, they arrested him and they got him crucified. Many other people in history have their end like that, irrespective of what we have said about them. But of Simon Kimbangu, I'm just like asking, could it have been possible that he will use the power within him to sort of block the people that were coming to arrest him so that he could fight back against the people?
I have two things to say. First of all, he had to surrender so that the people will not suffer from the police, because those villages which were around were put under the state of siege. So the police were there and it was disturbing the life of the people. So he had to first of all, he had to surrender in order for the people not to suffer much. That is the first thing. The second thing, he had the power to resist spiritually so that they could not kill him. They used all kind of schema in order to kill him, but to no avail. One of those schema was that they put him in a barrel. They welded the barrel and they put poisonous gas inside, and they did throw the barrel in the river, the Congo River, but he came out. So it was impossible for them to kill him. He died of his natural death.
How did he die? Can you explain that part?
He was condemned to life sentence, but they did their best in order to kill him. But it wasn't possible. How he died? That day he had just a little fever. He went to the prison hospital, and then he came back. He began to speak with the prison mate, telling them how to behave in life, telling that it was time for him to leave them. And he even told them that I'm going to die at 3 o'clock p.m. And then at 3 o'clock p.m., he took his hand and he beat his belly on the right, and he beat his belly on the left side and on the right side, and he said bye-bye, and he died.
What does that signify?
What does that? The signification was brought by one man who assisted when they made his autopsy. When they made the autopsy, they opened the belly. They found no organ inside. His body is still intact. I cannot testify to this. I'm telling you what the people who went to Congo say. They say that the body is intact.
All right. No, the tail was blocked before. Where it stopped just now was you said that when they opened the body for the autopsy, they found that there was no organ inside the body.
There were no bowels.
So how was it living without the organ? Was there any explanation for that?
No, what I'm telling you that he took away the bowels before dying by beating the belly. He took away the bowels.
All right. Okay. That would need further explanation, but okay, we'll leave it there. We'll leave that part there. Uh,
Yes.
okay. Now, looking at his people, looking at the people that he was fighting for, trying to assist to have a better experience, better life. What type of Congo, what type of Africa was he dreaming of? Was he speaking of that could possibly be? I mean, what was his vision of the future? I know you already touched something like that, but I want you to retouch it again.
In political terms, his vision was a free and prosperous Africa, a rich Africa where people will be free and where the young people will be inventing new technologies and technologies which are more performant than what we are seeing here. So he was seeing a prosperous Africa in terms of science, in terms of technology, and in terms of wealth.
How did he place other people in contest? Was he see only African were going to be prosperous? Every other person in the world was going to be under the influence of Africa, or did he? I mean, how did he see generally humanity? I understand the time that he was born. Now there was a lot of oppression. Okay, he could have a lot of resentment against the European, but in this world, there are not just Europeans and Africans. There are a lot of people in the world. From a spiritual point of view, I think at the point we go beyond just Europe and Africa. So, how did they see humanity in general, looking at into the future?
He didn't see humanity in terms of white against black, no, but he did stress that the leading spirituality, the leading science, the leading technology, the leading economy will be the Africans one, like it was in the time of ancient Egypt. So it is not a problem of despising the white people. It is not a problem of doing them, rendering them the hardship they did to us. No, but it is a problem of the black people rising and becoming the leading standard, having the leading paradigm in the world. This I say because he stressed that the fact that Africa is rich and Europe is poor. So it means that we will be using our riches first for ourselves, but also for the world because we will be the incentive. In us will be spirituality, it will be love, not hate, like it is for them.
All right, thank you for that. Now, today, this is 2023. How did ordinary Congolese think of this individual when they hear of him, when they hear the name Simon Kimbangu mentioned? What comes to their mind?
Today, I can affirm with certainty, with the hardship they are going through, when you mention Kimbangu, most of the Congolese people are thinking about the second independence. And that second independence, according to Simon Kimbangu, will be the starting point of the prosperity of the Black people in general.
Now, as a human being, do you think he could have had some challenges to deal with in terms of how the people, his people, could have a better life? Yeah, I'm asking that question because if you need something and you don't already have it, it means there is something that is stopping you. At the time now, the King Leopoldo of Benjo considered the Congolese his people, and of course, the Vatican will support him, and all the power that be in Europe will allow them to do this. They will, of course, split out Africa in Berlin, they look at it as their property. So Africans were their property. They do whatever they like to them, and nothing will happen. So this is the time that Simon Kimbangu was born. And when you look at that, you sort of ask, what kind of he will, of course, will want his people to be free. But if they are not free now, meaning that is something that's impeding them from freedom. So, what are some of those challenges that you would say this was what Simon Kimbangu had? That if he didn't have these challenges, he would have done more. He would have achieved this. He would have led his people to freedom. I don't know. What do you think of his challenges?
The country, when I say the country, I don't mean only the Belgium Congo. I mean the Congo people as a nation. The country has gone through bad exploitation by the Portuguese. The country has gone through slavery. The country has gone through division. The country has gone through spoliation by Leopold II. The country was going through colonization. And he was preparing the people for the freedom, telling them that all of that will be forgotten because he will be free. He was seeing the future. And by seeing the future, for example, he was telling people, you don't have weapons, you don't have weapons, but when the time will come, your brother from America will come and help you. And this did happen to Angola when the Cuban people, black from Cuba, came in order to fight for the freedom of Angola.
All right, I get that. I get that point. Yeah, from a political front, uh, when the African people unite among themselves and they really use their resources for their interest, they will be able to free themselves from the yoke that the Europeans have put on them, the shackles that they put on them. Even the European, the Western politicians and their group of mafias, they know that this is the case. That is why they are doing everything within their power to make sure that Africa do not have a common front.
Yeah.
Well, the time is going to come. Now, looking at Simon Kimbangu, what would you say his real legacy is? Because we are speaking about him today, looking at his life and legacy. What would you say are his real legacy, looking back to his life?
For me, there are two legacies. The spiritual legacy, which is for us to know that we have not to abandon our spirituality, our traditional religion. It is a power of life to save people. That is the first legacy, the first thing that he bequeathed to us. Faith in the power of the ancestors, faith in the power of our spirituality. And there is also the spiritual legacy, the legacy of courage. We have to know that we have the tool to free ourselves from the yoke of the white people. We have to know that that yoke will fall. And this, I know that it is happening. Mali is breaking from the yoke of France. Burkina Faso is doing the same. And the DRC, the Republic of Congo, is resisting the Western incentive to break it apart. So that is the legacy of Simon Kimbangu. He gave us an example of courage, speaking to the white people without fear.
Thank you for that. So, what would be your final thought here to conclude the conversation? Yeah, we have looked at this individual. We have a lot of things to learn from him, from what he has done in his lifetime. So, How would you conclude the conversation? Maybe a final message
I
from
will,
you.
the final message is that from the time of ancient Egypt, our ancestors knew that it will be a time that the black people will awake. And they knew also that that time will come from the year 2000. Simon Kimbangu came in order to give us signs of the happening of that freedom of awakening of the black people. Have to trust to that person and know that it is time for us to awake. It is time for us to break away from the yoke of the Western people. This will happen, and this is happening right now.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. I appreciate the conversation and I appreciate the fact that you have allowed us to be able to learn from this great individual in our series of life and legacy. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
If you enjoy this podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. I remain Obehi Ewanfo. Thank you so much for listening and talk to you in the next episode.